Intrepid viewers, welcome to Greece. I'm back in Greece on the beautiful island of Skopelos. Not that you know it, because all you can see is my hairdryer. But anyway, at the end, I'll take you out on the balcony. I was hoping to do this video out there, but it's actually freezing and windy. So I'll give you a little look at the end. Now, let me take this bangle off, it's banging. Today, I want to focus mainly on the stock market and what's happening there. But in other news, Nancy Pelosi has been to the Ukraine, so I hope that's a positive development. And you may have heard Russian troops stole $5 million worth of farm equipment from the Ukraine and put it on huge military trucks and took it to Chechnya. But the John Deere dealership that owned them have done the remote control thing and turned them off, and they can't be used. So that was a little bit of action on behalf of the John Deere Corporation. Okay. I don't know if you caught up. This is really obscure, but let me share it with you. Some workers in Illinois were renovating a house, and when they cracked through one of the walls, they found an old pile of half-eaten McDonald's French fries, and they were still preserved. I'll leave that thought with you. How disgusting. What on earth do they do to their French fries? 50-year-old French fries, and they hadn't rotted away. No. So I'm here in Greece where they eat real food, and let me tell you, it is delicious. Yeah, there's hardly any processed food here, and why would you eat it? You know, so they do prefer to eat food as opposed to food lookalike products. Okay. So viewers' questions. A viewer wrote to me that Deutsche Bank, I've been reading on Deutsche Bank since 2017, and they're not a good bank. Well, and they were exposed for money laundering for China and Russia. And then in 2019, they were fined $16 million. Spare me. Like, they've got to stop fining financial institutions and rich people. It's got to be different. The people who did those loans should be in jail. It's like fining Yeti $10,000 a day for not complying, which he won't pay. And then what will happen? Nothing, right? Are we sick of this pattern or what? You know, so nonetheless, the US Department of Justice raided Deutsche Bank last Friday with the German authorities. Again, money laundering. So the viewer question was, will any Trump stuff turn up in the wash? In other words, was this what was motivating the DOJ for this? It's a big deal, actually raiding a foreign bank in another country. It's a very big deal, so you'd have to hope they mean business. Let's look. Deutsche Bank, US Department of Justice. Oh, this is expanding. Now, with this, pages and messengers, remember that when you're learning tarot, the Page of Cups. I'm just about to sneeze. Spring. Oh, forgive me. Oh. Now, with the Page of Cups, surprise messages. They're going to be a bit surprised with what they've found out. It's going to be bigger than they thought. The Empress is always about expanding things. So they've gone in. Obviously, they would have to have a large amount of evidence to be able to do this in Germany, right? So, but it's bigger than they thought or that we would think. There is still a juggle ahead and a degree of manipulation around the burden of proof. So what does that mean in this context? I don't think it's so much proving. It could be trouble proving that the transactions themselves were illegal. They could have very good fronts, or it could be a difficulty with the burden of proof on who is responsible for it happening. One of those two things. So they're going to find more than they thought. Now, here's the magician. So I'm going to draw a clarifier on this. Does this mean Deutsche Bank is going to magically skip away, or is this a DOJ magician who can come up with demonstrating this evidence so that it holds water? So let's do a couple of quick clarifiers on the magician, please. On the magician. Who is the magician? What is the context? Who is the magician? Magician. Have a little look. The Judgment. King of Wands. So with those two cards, Judgment and the King of Wands, the King of Wands is usually someone of considerable power and influence who usually is doing the right thing, and especially when combined with the Judgment card. So I think we might see something. It'll no doubt be interesting. Keep an eye on this case. But more to it, it could be, dare we hope, a bit of a lifting the lid on something, because this all goes back. The Deutsche Bank stuff goes back to Don Jr. and Jared and all those players, because all of them are in debt up to their eyebrows with many lending institutions, not the least of which was Deutsche Bank. Okay. So while we're speaking of the DOJ, let me have a look at what's happening with the DOJ in regard to January 6th. And we know that's all hugely complicated, and it is the most complicated political case, I think, of the century. I don't think that's too big a statement. It's huge. So we're desperately trying to be patient. Patience, patience, patience. So we're looking and dipping in here to the DOJ, and that, of course, is Merrick Garland. What fell out? The King of Wands. I'll leave it there because I'm hoping to hell that is Merrick Garland. Now, you will have noticed an ad at the beginning of this, and that's because, having had my US tax thing go in, after all that and all my anxiety around that, I earned such a pittance on YouTube that it doesn't even sort of fall into the tax threshold. So never mind. I love this work, so I'm not going to stop. So we'll have some ads in the future, and maybe I'll monetize some of them, and others can be like Lena Unchained, and I can let rip a bit. Okay, so back to Merrick Garland, the King of Wands, the DOJ, January 6th. Oh, look, they've really, really good cards for us. So I'm hoping that is the case. Yeah. Okay, so like I said, here's Merrick Garland doing the right thing by everybody, you know, hopefully in the end. We're all a bit worried about Merrick, you know. But despite being such a measured man, Merrick Garland, we've got to remember this is Wands, Wands are fire. Fires can be a slow burn. Okay. He's got the full weight of the justice system in the form of the Hierophant operating here, right? The pillars of wisdom suggesting having to pick certain battles over others. These are the people, these are the acolytes in this card deck for the Hierophant, who are the lawyers working for Garland. And they're working very hard for the system. This card is all about the system. Now, here we have my GOP card. Okay, I think we're going to see, and surely we will, well, we know from what has been revealed, the number of GOP people involved in this, right? The ones who went all in for the Yeti. 10. Now, 10's two things. There could be as many as 10 of them. That would not surprise me. But 10's are also a completion number. So a bit like the Letitia James reading I did recently, they're coming to the end of one cycle. This is going to play out for years, past the midterms, past everything. But what we're interested in is the end of a cycle. Is there enough to convict? And hopefully this is, when I say convict, that's the wrong word legally, to press forward, and the DOJ being convinced there is a case against multiple GOP entities. The Queen of Wands is here. I think in this case, you'd have to think it's Liz Cheney. Okay, so she is the Queen to Merrick Garland's king. So even though I wouldn't give the time of day under other circumstances, and I'm sure many of you with Liz Cheney, she has proved herself to be dynamic and absolutely unflagging in her attempt to expose the GOP as only one of their own can do. So even though it's going crazy out there, the King and Queen of Wands, they provide balance. But balance is only any good if people want to be balanced, if they actually want to know what's really going on, as opposed to just being, you know, hoovers for misinformation. It's just demented. Australian viewers, sorry, I can't read on the Australian election. It's too close. It's like reading for myself. My personal view is, I think Scotty from marketing will lose. I think Albanese will win. But Labor is so uninspiring. I'm just completely uninspired by it. But I think he'll get up. Now, the stock market. Did you see Joe Biden made some jokes at the Yeti's expense at the correspondents' dinner? I love that, where he said there'd been years of plague and then there was COVID. Throwing a bit of shade there, Joe. Okay, I'm going to look at the US stock market, because all the markets are beginning to go wobbly, and it's not surprising. You've got Ukraine, you've got supply chain stuff, you've got the aftermath of COVID, well, not even aftermath in many cases. So many things acting on the stock market. Brexit is an unparalleled disaster. So with the global economies, what is happening? How is it influencing the US market? Where's it going to go? US stocks. US stocks. Okay. The High Priestess. All right. Now here, this is what's going on here, intrepid ones. The High Priestess. She does have her secrets. She always has her secrets. Now, it's foolish to think of the stock market as anything but a casino. That is what it is. But I think there are some things behind the scenes that are being held back, not just from us, the public, but from your everyday investors. So those of you who have 401k type investments or something, we still occupy a different space than, as mere mortals, than those who are the serious blue chip long-term players, right? So it's not clear yet how it's really going to jump. I think you can assume the stock markets everywhere, not least of which the US, are going to continue to drop some way. I think here comes the Knight of Cups, in this case, the false knight. I would be careful, and I think there'll be a false sense of, oh, well, it's dropped X points, it's dropped as far as it's going to be okay. But I don't think that is the true end result of it. I'm not seeing a massive crash, but I am seeing erosion. Investors, mainly big investors, are going to fight back. They love the stock market and they're going to fight back. They will have to make a judgment call on where to put their money, because now it is so stupid, you know, the way you can actually bet on prices going down and all that stuff. You can bet on your sports team losing. I mean, what is this stuff? You know, it's gone so crazy. So the judgment calls will have to be made. Now, here's the thing. The Fool can be foolish, can be a brand new day, can be both. Okay, so I think that the key cards here are the Judgment card, the Fool, but the Fool is young, and the Fool represents newer technologies, and in a global sense, green technologies versus the dinosaur or fossil fuels, right? So I think green stuff will actually fare better than the old guard. I do think there's going to be a steady erosion here, but these are the ones that are more likely to pick up and gather pace. So it depends how you've invested or how your retirement fund in Australia, because they invest. Now there's a bigger push, I'm sure it's global, but in Australia for retirees, baby boomers, to say we don't want our retirement money invested in filthy dead industries. Put that huge sums of money that the collective pot of retirement is into green energies. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom, but it's definitely wobbly, and I think going to go down in the foreseeable future somewhat. Okay. So in other news, those of you who are tennis followers like myself, Boris Becker, remember Boris in those little white shorts? Boom, boom. Well, Boom Boom's been caught out owing hundreds of thousands of euros. Why do these people never pay their bills? I don't know. But he only owes hundreds of thousands of euros, not millions, hundreds of thousands. He's going to jail for 18 months before he can look at parole. It's that thing. And Donald Trump himself, never thought I'd quote Trump, I remember him saying in the 90s, if you owe a bank $9 million, you've got a serious problem. if you owe the bank $90 billion, they've got the serious problem. And that's what it's like. So the middle. Now, housekeeping. Because I'm still traveling, I'll be doing readings again in June. So remember that in case I forget to remind you, I will be opening the books again in June. So in the meantime, I want to have a look at Portland. So Portland's changed tremendously by all accounts. There are many of you in Portland. It's had big issues in the last 5 years. It's rapidly changing as a city. I want to see how resilient is Portland. Is it time to think about Canada? What's happening in Portland? I've had quite a few requests for this. Portland. Okay. We'll do a different spell. Oh, it's Queen of Wands Day. Ah, this deck never fails to amaze me. Wow, 2 star cards. Oh my God, go Portland. Go Portland. When you get a new deck of tarot cards, some people, I'm sure, dissect them all and study them all individually and handle them extensively and stuff. I tend not to. I use my other regular cards for readings, for doing other things, my day-to-day stuff. And I just keep these cards for YouTube videos. And this is the first time. So remember last time 2 devils turned up? It's a bit oogie boogie. But in this case, I think it's good. So the Queen of Wands in the middle, the grand old dame that is Portland, you've got to love that. And it has always had a reputation for being a quite progressive city, for being inclusive in terms of having an alternative, a healthy alternative world and so on, wanting people to prosper, wanting people to live their lives as they want to live them. How novel, right? So good on Portland. However, with the exponential growth of homelessness and then all the aftermath of the Black Lives Matter rallies and so forth, it's had a lot of pressure. You've got more people outside of Portland in Oregon who are mad MAGAites and all of that. So the changing fortunes of Portland, right? In its past, the star card, which was all those things that I said that were positive and desirable about Portland. On top, the energy over the issue, still a conflict around this. How much to spend on social services, what can be spent, what isn't, who's getting the money, what's happening, dribbling down to the desperate, the middle class getting radically uncomfortable. No one seems to have the solution. You know, people are talking, but for those Portland people, you get your bookend star cards. That's the past and that's the future. I have to say, that's better than I was expecting. I'm really pleased with that. Oh, go Portland. Now, before I go, let me take you to the great outdoors here. Just a moment. I'll see if I can pause this. I don't want to stop it. Just want to pause. Oh, no, it won't let me pause. I'm sure it will, but I'm not going to do it. So now you have to watch the vision of me getting up off the floor and taking you out. This is the port of Skopelos. And here's one of the ferries. It's amazing how they drive these ferries. Can you see it? Oh, isn't it beautiful? Oh. And there we go. The chapel at the end of the cliff. Wherever you go, there's another gorgeous little church. Oh, I so love Greece. So, my darlings, oops, bang. And that's it for now. But I never forget. Don't worry, I'll be back as soon as I can. I'm starting to get the big Greek hair again. Do you remember from pre-COVID when I was last here, I got the huge hair? Okay. Take care. Love you guys.